Right, we made it through baggage claim, made it through customs.
We're on a boat, where we should be.
Ah, feels so good. We're on a Helia 44.
Just catching our breath from 2 months of exploring New Zealand.
We've had some incredible adventures, and we'll be sharing more of that in episodes to come. You probably know us from our cruising adventures on our Leopard 46 Clarity.
We sold that a few months ago, and we have been on the boat hunt.
We've been traveling many different ways.
Before Clarity, there was Either Way, a very simple boat.
And before that, we had a larger, more comfortable monohull.
And in between, we've been RVing. We started with a really fancy small Sprinter van.
And then we went to Bertha, a more comfortable C-Class. But that couldn't take us off grid the way we wanted to.
So, we got a minimalist off-road setup. Do we have a nickname for it? Let's call it Flipper. So we're always going back and forth from comfortable and convenient to more Spartan and flexible. Really, the only thing we haven't tried is small airplane travel. You down?
Nope.
Come on.
I told him he has to write the book first. How to Get Her High.
I'll get you high. What's next? We don't know. But we have never traveled like this.
In this video, we're going to cover the costs, the challenges, the communications, the food, the similar issues that you have while cruising.
It's a fantastic experience traveling by land, but after all this, I think cruising sailboats. That's my preferred method of travel.
Well, let's get into it.
First things first, let's talk money. 2-month trip. How much we spent?
Over 8 weeks, we spent $11,800, which comes out to $210 per day for both of us. That includes all the experiences, the fuel, the transportation, provisions, eating out, hotel, Airbnb costs, and the data.
All right, so how does that compare to cruising?
Well, it's a good thing you asked because I did do a little comparison. For the same 8-week period cruising on our sailboat Clarity, it would be about $9,400.
So $2,500 more to travel by land and stay in hotels and Airbnbs.
It was interesting to see that transportation costs and eating out were the big ticket items for Airbnb cruising.
We should give folks the lay of the land. We didn't do it up eating in fancy restaurants and staying in the top hotels and Airbnbs everywhere we went. We went for kind of the more budget options, but also we splurged. We had some really good food and a few nice places.
As budget cruisers, we went with a compact car.
Now, we did save a few dollars by borrowing a friend's car. The total cost would have been a little higher, maybe $2,000 more if we rented all the way through.
Yes, it pays to shop around for a rental car. There was a huge difference in cost.
Let's talk driving. Driving in New Zealand is challenging. It is not relax, sit back, and hit cruise control. No way. Now, the drivers are very courteous, but the roads, they're twisty, turny, and you got to be on your game the whole time.
And there's a lot of road construction.
Fuel costs are pretty much the same as you'd find in the US or Australia, but cheaper than you'll find in Europe. Between $2.50 and $2.80 New Zealand per liter.
We ended up spending about $922 US on fuel.
That took us over 3,500 miles. Anymore, we're just not the types for camping. But we are doing this on a budget. We stayed in decent places, but definitely not the high end.
And New Zealand, I gotta tell you, you guys know how to do your Airbnbs. Were you blown away by the Airbnb selection?
Blown away.
It was incredible. From modern beachfront masterpieces to cozy hilltop perches with stunning views. The most unique place we stayed was the time capsule in Tim's on the Coromandel Peninsula.
It's called the Butterfly House, built in the 60s and furnished from the 60s. I felt like I was in the Brady Bunch.
Good thing we're used to living in small spaces because we rented quite a few studios.
Right, it was partially to save money, but also like, how much do we need, really? I don't need 4 bedrooms.
We're pretty simple when it comes to needs, and here are a few things that we were looking for.
We prefer to have our own space. I mean, we're just so messy and loud, we don't want to disturb anybody. No, we want some private space, and one of your top priorities was always a
bathtub. Oh, so when I saw a photo of a bathtub, I was sold. What? I want to show you one thing I've never seen in my entire life. They covered up the bathtub, but left the faucet?
We did have a little trouble finding accommodations in a couple spots.
For example, Milford Sound, which is New Zealand's crown jewel. You could not stay close by unless you wanted to spend $1,000 a night.
So we drove in, and I think it was about an hour and a half, 2 hours. Those twisty, turny, windy little roads. It was an epic journey.
I'm glad they didn't have a ton of motels littering the whole view of the Milford Sound.
Yeah, we want access. We just don't want access for everybody.
Hands down, the most unique experience that we had was on Flea Bay.
It was a farm stay. This is where you go stay on a farm. Okay, obvious name. But it's a really cool experience because we got to interact with the farm animals and went on a little penguin hunt. Penguin safari.
It was incredible. We stayed in a tree house. We had communal kitchen and bathrooms.
It was cool.
Really cool. And that drive to get there, I'm never going to forget that.
A nail biter.
We were traveling with a lot of heavy gear, so one thing I looked for was something that had a parking spot close by.
Right? I think we're traveling with, 200 pounds. It feels like 200 pounds.
Let's talk about planning and reservations. There was such a wide selection and availability, we really only had to plan 1 or 2 days in advance.
It came down to the logistics of having all of this camera gear with us. It's expensive stuff, and we can't just leave it in the car. So if we were going to a place where we could check in only after 3 p.m., but we had left the previous place at 10 a.m.,
what we found is if we wanted to explore a place, we really had to stay for 2 nights because of the check-in and check-out periods.
Right. We would check in after 3 p.m., get settled, maybe have a meal, and then we'd have the next following day to explore while our gear was safe back in the Airbnb or hotel.
The most we stayed in one place was 4 nights, and that was in Wanaka.
Definitely a highlight for us. Wanaka, top marks. We never, ever felt unsafe in New Zealand. It's a very safe country. We were warned about a couple spots to, keep a lookout with, but just because we were worried about leaving our stuff in the car doesn't mean that it was particularly unsafe. It's just that our gear is so expensive that if that small chance that somebody was watching broke in, the loss would be pretty big.
There were 7 nights where we just rolled into town and didn't even know where we were going to stay.
Now that worked pretty well. I think there was one location where we had to look around. Quite a few places were booked up in this particular spot. Where was that?
Kaka.
Kaka. Very popular, Kaka. Eventually we settled in a decent enough place.
Yeah, it worked out great. Okay, this might be one of my favorite Airbnbs. I did do the trampoline this morning. It was a great workout. We did have one fail.
1 or 2. Yeah, we had a couple spots that weren't great.
It does feel like an old Western. And there was a horror film made here.
I think they built these things in the early 70s, and literally they have not applied a lick of paint to the entire thing.
No. All right, what sold me on this place was not just the price of $64, it was the 5-minute walk to the hot springs that are actually cold. Well, we've hit a bit of a fail here in New Zealand. Taupo, I'm sure you're a great little town, beautiful location, no question about it. The hotel, delusions of grandeur. On the bright side, I'm glad that we came to Taupo because It was a halfway point on the way to Auckland, and we needed a little bit of a respite between all the driving we've been doing. So it's a nice break. Nick got the video finished.
Megan Brightside O'Kelly. Hey, anybody need a pump up, motivational speech? Megan's available.
I am. Give me your worst scenario and I'll give you the bright side.
I'm not saying that they rented this thing by the hour, but they probably did at some point.
I really did not even want to have my shoes off in there.
There was one saving grace. The sheets were clean, though crispy.
And the internet there was actually the fastest we had on the entire trip.
I was blown away. What made up for it, though, was the burger that we got in town.
Thank you so much. At Jimmy Coop.
Jimmy's Steakhouse, Taipo, New Zealand.
That leads us to the next subject. Food.
I guess the biggest challenge of traveling Airbnb style is controlling your diet.
When we're sailing or even living out of an RV, we hardly ever eat out. Everything that we eat is something that we bought in the store and cooked. It's not really about the Airbnb style of traveling per se, but maybe it's about all the really good food in New Zealand. This was a huge surprise for me. The New Zealanders, Kiwis, they like the pastries.
Yes, you guys know how to make those savory pastries too. Tacos, not so much. We ordered a bunch of tacos, but we got this one, carne asada.
It's not very warm.
You're not even gonna finish this?
No, I mean, this taco is terrible.
We went for it at the Fainting Goat, and we got the goat boat.
Is that what it's called? The goat boat?
Why do they call it the Fainting Goat?
Because after you eat all this food, you faint.
You going belly up?
Yeah. Caveat though, it did take us 3 days to eat this. Guys, a ton, turn over a new leaf.
Oh my God. It really is. I'm embarrassed.
You're embarrassed?
Yeah, all this junk food is adding up, and I don't feel so good in my body.
We're not like crazy dieters, but we do like to try and eat healthy if we can.
Every place we stayed had a refrigerator, and we carried a cooler and did our best to eat healthy. But not every place had a full kitchen where we could cook our own food.
So we ended up eating a lot of snack foods during the day. Cold cuts, nuts. That left us with dinners eaten mostly out, and it became really difficult to eat healthy.
We got pretty good by the end, having lettuce wraps instead of buns and french fries. All right, we just drove about 3 hours. We need a little coffee top up. It's been about a week now, but we did finally clean up our diet. We stopped purchasing chocolate and bread and eating pastries.
We chose the wrong day to eat healthy. This
I was just talking about that.
This place looks amazing.
I smell it.
They've got chicken and waffles, pastries,
Oh, it smells
coffee.
so good. There are a few cellular dead spots, but it was easy to predict, and we would download our maps ahead of time and have no problem navigating.
So let's talk about a couple of the other downsides of traveling this way. Living out of a car and Airbnbs. One of the big ones has got to be the packing and unpacking.
It was so hard to stay organized.
Right? You take everything apart and, well, every box and bag has got its own special gathering place for cords, lenses, batteries, chargers, converters, clothing, food, shampoo,
toothbrushes.
Keeping everything in its right place.
We got better at it as time went on.
Yeah, we're darn near professional packer and unpackers now. Overall, though, I would say that I prefer having some sort of mobile home base. I think it's overall easier to be traveling with an RV or, really my preferred mode now, a boat. Everything in its right place. You've got your kitchen full of your food, and you can move, although a bit slower, to where you want to go much more independently. It's really hard to see a country as big as New Zealand in just a couple months by sailboat.
I also love that you don't have to have a big plan.
No, the plan can shift on a dime. Somebody tells you about some other cool place to go, well, you just change directions. You can make that decision in 10 minutes. So you feel very free. I would say on the downside, aside from packing and unpacking continuously and having a difficult time keeping everything in order, The other downside would be the cost. This is somewhat more expensive than sailing around. But then again, you don't have all your money in a boat.
That's true. After all this, we still feel the pull of the ocean.
Right. I think that traveling by boat, especially a boat that is large enough to be comfortable in, but simple enough that you're not spending all your time maintaining it, is really the way to go. And for us, the hunt continues. We're still looking for that boat.
In the next couple weeks, we're going to take you to many of these destinations that we've shared today.
We're going to take you sailing here in the next couple of weeks to some incredible destinations.
We're going to Australia.
Thanks, as always, to, well, any of you taking your time to watch these videos, but a special thanks to our patrons who help make this possible.
Yes, thank you, everybody.
See you next week.
You got some rebound there, baby.
Woo!